Hey guys, welcome back. I'm Corey. He's Such. This is the Third Perspective podcast. Thanks for coming on our journey today. And just to let you know, any opinions here are expressed our own. This will be episode 35. Such, how you doing?
Good, man. So I just want to let everyone know if I sound a bit weird, it's because I've been sick this week and I'm just coming off of this sickness. So that's why I sound a bit odd.
That's okay. We appreciate you being on here and soldiering through. If you die, I do want your stuff though.
Yeah, all good, man. I already put it in my will. You get everything,
Excellent.
which
Fantastic.
is nothing.
Well, I don't know what I'm going to do with so many pairs of shorts I can't wear because I'm too fat for them, but I'll figure it out. It's all good.
Well, there's a bunch of running shoes you can start losing that weight.
Nice. As long as we're the same size feet. I don't think we are, so I'm not sure I'm going to be able to lose that weight, but whatever.
Oh man.
And for those of us watching on YouTube, we've got a very special guest today, Jason Evans. Jason, how are you doing?
I'm well, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. So obviously, I was introduced through or to you through Such, and I'm aware of your endeavor, Shadows and Light.
Sure.
But I figure, and I always say this, I want to go to the subject matter expert. Rather than me talk about you, I'd love to know who you are through you.
Sure. Yeah, I'm Jason Evans. I'm 50 years old. I'm a son, a brother. I'm an uncle to a bunch of kids, and I'm a lover of music. I'm a lover of golf. I'm a fairly creative kind of dude. I'm into photography, and I sew bags as well on the side. I make bags and leather goods.
Nice.
Yeah.
Now I know one of the best things that you're known for, because I didn't know you sewed bags. That's really cool.
Yeah.
But one of the most prominent things that I think that at least I know you from is obviously your Instagram page and your web page. And there's something very striking about that I think if anybody hasn't seen it, I want you, if you're watching this on YouTube, you've got your phone next to you, or you're listening to this on audio, I want you to go look at his website. And the reason is because I think that there's something very important about, I've written it down, but the importance of the medium. And you described yourself as several things. And I think that the way that you portray your subjects in that medium really ties all of that together in an image. And obviously we're an audio and video medium here with the podcast, but why don't you talk a little bit about that? I've got some specific questions about that, but what made you start that project, that love?
Sure. Yeah. So about 5 years ago, actually, we'll get right into it. About 5 years ago, I had a little bit of a life crisis. Essentially, I got sick, and I didn't know what was going on. I couldn't figure it out. I started to lose weight. Like I lost like 40 pounds. In the end, I couldn't work. I had to take 4 months off work. I was just worried all the time, worried about myself, worried about other people, just unable to cope, unable to be out in the real world, So, yeah, I really went through it for a good, I don't know, maybe 4 to 6 months. Had to be off work. I don't know if I just said that. Had to be off work for a while, which was really hard for me. And yeah, I came out the other side. And at that time, I had a buddy who had joined a men's group. So he was suggesting that I should, maybe look into joining a men's group, finding a space where I could, share, talk, let out what was going on inside of me. And I didn't want to do that, that was the last thing I wanted to do, was to sit in a circle of dudes and share, what my deepest, darkest secrets were. So in the end, I did it. I joined up, and it was super healing. It was, I'd never, where I came up, where I grew up, you didn't do that. We didn't talk about stuff like that. That was a sign of weakness, sharing your feelings, So I was just blown away by, I sat with these guys the first time I ever, went to a group. I sat with 13 other guys, and I actually cried. I was really going through another difficult thing was happening in my life. So, and none of them batted an eye. Everybody just was supportive. No one there made me feel special. but also, just I was surprised because I sort of felt like that was going to be, like I'd be shamed, further shamed, basically, and that wasn't the case. So in sitting in that group, about a year in, I'd always wanted to do a project in my life around photography and portraiture. So I've been a photographer for probably 30 years, and I always had this thing in the back of my mind that I would like to, create some sort of a project like that. And so one of the things I learned from, sitting in that group myself was that, I could express, sort of my deepest, darkest secrets to these guys, and they had my back. And it just came to me, sitting in that group one day, it was like, yeah, man, there it is. That's the thing. Like, this is what you need to do. You need to take photographs of men and allow them to tell a story. So yeah, it all as soon as I sort of put it out there to the universe, it sort of like worked in my favor, everything started to come easy in a sense. I had picked a different name for the project initially, and in the end, a friend, sort of directed me away from that name. And she mentioned, what about something to do with shadows or shadows and light? And I was like, that's perfect. Like it's exactly what it needs to be named. And yeah, everything just fell into place. The URL was available, the Instagram handle was available, and yeah, I started building it. A couple of guys I know stepped up right away. I put myself out there first, and I hit it. I hit it for quite a while. I hit it from a lot of people, a lot of my good friends. I didn't tell about it initially because, it's that exact thing. I was worried I would be, shamed for putting it out there, for sharing my quote unquote weakness, my vulnerability.
Such, you had an intimate involvement with this. Are you comfortable talking
Yeah,
about your
for sure, man.
participation in it?
Yeah, for sure. That's how Jason and I met. I was going through my own stuff, right, a few years ago, and I can't remember. I think maybe Jason connected with me through Instagram and asked if I wanted to be part of the Shadow and Light project. And I was at the time I was in a pretty bad spot myself. So for me at the time, it was I wasn't able to trust anyone. I second guessed everybody. So when he first engaged with me, I was like, "Who is this guy, man? Why do you wouldn't even talk to me? And why do you want to take pictures of me?" I was just like skeptical. I was just like, "Oh man, I ain't doing this."
Mm-hmm.
And then I went through the account and I went through what he was doing, and I was hesitant, but I did it anyways. Why did I do it? I wanted to step out of my comfort zone and engage in something that I thought could be meaningful, right? And when I met with him and we went through the process of the photography and the shoot, I felt relaxed within about 10 minutes, and I understood what he was trying to do. And he did amazing work, man. Like the essence, at least what I got out of it, was to not like make beautiful shots, but like real shots, like real images of where you are in that moment. And he did amazing. And he really helped me at that time to also put pen to paper and put my thoughts onto paper and to express where I was and how I got there and what I hope to do coming out of it. And he was one of the first people on this sort of path that I'm on that kind of helped me get out of where I was. And yeah, so that's kind of how I met Jason and that whole process and the whole project that he's doing. I thought it was legit, and I felt really good about it. So that's why I said, "Hey man, let's do the potty."
Yeah. Yeah, that's wow. Sorry, I was just gonna say, hearing that back, that's such a compliment, man, from you. That's huge. I didn't know that. So
Yeah, no,
I didn't know. I didn't know it had an effect on you. So I appreciate
it did, right? And maybe I didn't express it well enough at the time when I came to your place to do the photography or the session, and I was in a really, really just not a good place mentally, and I felt at the time when that happened, I remembered it, and I was like, okay, well, if I even ever get anywhere or do anything, man, I'm bringing this guy with me. And so that's kind of how I felt, and that's why we're doing this now, man.
Dude, that's crazy.
Now,
Thanks.
do you think that the reason that you feel that now is something that you can identify because of where you are? Because I don't think if I'm reading you properly, I don't think that you necessarily thought that all when that
Mm-mm.
happened.
No, it's taken time to reflect for sure, man. Because I'd like to think I've come on the other end of where I was, and by no means am I perfect, or I don't have other growth or things to work on. But I'm definitely not where I was, right? And I think um, I'm able to assess what that was, and what it meant to me, and it meant a lot, man. It meant I might even get emotional talking about it, man.
Go ahead.
um, I didn't feel like I was anything, man, and I felt like garbage. And here's a guy who didn't know me from Adam and thought, "Hey, man, maybe you can share your story and it might help somebody else." And for me, that was it took me time to understand that, but it was pretty helpful for me.
Mm. And the reason I bring that up is because, Jason, I'd love to get your thoughts on this. When I look at your stuff, and the photos specifically, without reading anything,
Hmm.
I see I see the medium. I see the process. I see the darkness around people, not as darkness, but I see it almost as protection highlighting the person.
Mm.
Whereas I think if somebody isn't in the right frame of mind, they might look at things a little bit differently, or in a different frame of mind, I should say. They might
Mm.
look at things a little bit differently. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah. So, what do you mean by, like, when you look at the images, the actual shadows in the images, feel like sort of a protection? Is that what you're saying? Or
Yeah. So for me, with the photos, when I was looking at them, they're quite stark. They're quite powerful, and
sure.
there's a blackness around every figure.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
And I don't think of it as darkness. I see it
Hmm.
as almost darkness as a protection surrounding the
Hmm.
subject,
Hmm.
right? It's
Hmm.
not a negative thing. It's almost a
Right.
safe thing in there.
Sure. Yeah, it's kind of like that darkness in a weird sort of way. It's like the darkness sort of highlights the person. Uh, I don't know if that really makes sense, but
Hmm.
um, yeah, I don't know how to answer that. It's like I'm probably going to go off a little bit here, but it's like we all have shadows, right? These are the parts of ourselves that we cast aside, that we don't want to face, that we don't want anyone to know about, that we feel the most shame around, right?
Hmm.
And I think it's probably not answering your question, but I think when I get when I get into a shoot with a guy, if we have a good connection, like Satch and myself, it's like they can express that to the camera in a way.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
yeah, a lot of emotion. The pictures carry a lot of emotion,
Yeah.
and yeah, I don't know if that helps, or maybe I'm just not totally.
No, I appreciate that, and I'd like to know too. Obviously, because um, being a photographer of 30 years, you know the craft.
Hmm.
What was your thought? So for our listeners, what was your, if you had any, what was the meaning behind the black and white photo? What was the meaning for presenting the subject in that matter?
Sure. So yeah, I can definitely speak to that. When I started this project, my idea was to the processing of the photographs was meant to look like tintype photography. So tintype
Mm,
photography was sort of the initial photography, back in the 1800s, late 1800s. I actually don't know the date that it was invented, but you see a lot of those old photos. They have sort of blown highlights, and like they're really contrasty, and people are often very stoic looking in them. I think part of that is because they had to sit very still because they were long exposures. But it has a look, and that's the look I really wanted to replicate for this project. So I do a little process within Photoshop or in Lightroom, and it sort of creates a little bit of that look. But yeah, initially this project I had named it the Samurai Project. And so one of the things when I first started to build the website was that you can it's royalty free to use those old images of samurais. And there's these beautiful, if you get a chance, like just look up 1800s tin type samurai photos. And I sort of had them in the headings and in different places. And in the end, I'm super glad I didn't go that way. But yeah, that's sort of the look and feel behind it. Is this sort of tin type looking photography? Even modern day tin type photography, if you look some of that up, it's the most beautiful. They're the most beautiful portraits you could ever see. The detail is unmatched.
Yeah. Such as being one of the subjects, what was it like to sit there?
Yeah, like I said, man, I was in a mental state that wasn't ideal. But I think, I mean, so full disclosure, I've been photographed a bunch of times before, even before that, right? So I've been in photo shoots before, so that wasn't a a space that I felt super uncomfortable with. But the type of style he was doing was very artistic, and I thought it was so legit that it was very artistic, and I just wanted to be part of something that was artistic in nature. And how did I feel? Well, I felt pretty relaxed after we had our conversation, and I mean, he made it really amazing because he was putting on music that I was familiar with, right? So then kind of relaxing the environment, and then I just I let him run the show, right? Like it was just he led the way, and I presented certain forms or image like styles of movement, and he shot them, and I felt how did I feel? I felt it was like a cathartic thing for me. And even but it wasn't just for that day, right? Because I also had to write my story, and he was also instrumental in helping me with that because at that time I hadn't written much. So for me, it was a challenge to even put pen to paper. So for me, it was a longer process just than that day. It was let's say a week of kind of thinking about it and working with and trying to present the best perspective of what I was trying to portray from me, and then what he was trying to do for himself. And he was very supportive, very helpful, and really understood what I was going through, and was not judgmental. Because I mean, for me, man, I have a real problem or an issue feeling judged by people, and I don't know. I mean, I always have that feeling, and I really get my back up when I feel that way, almost to the extent of like pushing back when I feel judged. And I didn't feel that at all, at all. Right? And
Man,
the music choices would illustrate that
yeah,
because
yeah,
the
right.
music
Yeah.
because I want to be. I had a really difficult time for many years being myself,
Yeah.
both just in reality and expressing the type of music I like, the art, all the things, right? And this was the beginning of me entering into being myself.
Mm.
And that's why this holds um, a special place for me, because now I am myself. I am expressing myself as who I want to be. And that was the beginning of my journey.
Interesting.
Wow, man. I think that's why, I relate so much with you, and I did when we met the first time too. But it's like our stories are really the same. They're different, but the same. It's like
Mm-hmm.
similar feelings, man. Like super defensive around any sort of judgment. My life always been that way. Very much like, yeah, get my back up real quick, and yeah, this just really resonates with me, man. Yeah, I think that's probably why we got along. I remember when you walked in here that day, and you sat me down. I was really nervous. Man, I was super nervous to meet you. And you right away, you're like, let's sit down on the couch here and tell me more about what this thing is, man. I was just like, dude, this guy's intense, man. Like this is crazy. But yeah, man. And the music, just to bring that up, the music is, you chose the music. Yeah. Every man chooses the music. So I have them do that. It's another way that we can connect and learn more about a guy, right? So, because it's amazing how it varies with certain individuals. You know, you've had everything from Slayer to Christian music to, you know,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I really relate with you know, the stuff you've
You
been
know,
through. So,
and I'll tell you what, man, it's no small thing. Music's really big for me.
yeah, me too.
It's super important to me, and I identify with music so much. And you know, growing up, you know, in being an Indo-Canadian and from an immigrant family, I always hid it.
Mm,
Right? I always would never express the music that I enjoyed because everyone else around me didn't listen to it. So, or they would make fun of me. Or if I was in the car and putting, you know, at 15, 16 driving or whatever, you have the music on, driving by someone with the windows open, I'd turn it down, like
yeah,
things like that.
yeah,
So, for me, it might sound, and I remember when I moved to Dallas when I was in high school, I was grade 9. And, I don't know, man. It's so weird, but in grade 9, we had a project where we would have to play a song in our class, and we would have to stand up in the front of the class, play this song, and then explain the lyrics, and then explain, you know, if there's a simile, metaphor, what's, you know, all the things associated to that song. And I remember I spent a week trying to figure out what should I pick, man, because I was so like the type of music that I like. No, like everyone there would be like, "What the hell are you doing? Like, who are you? Like, you?" And I was a new kid in town in Dallas, Texas,
mm,
with the only brown kid, and everybody else like, "Who's this brown guy? He's a Mexican or something." Like, you know, it was not pleasant when I first got
right,
there. And so I bounced back and forth between what song I should pick. So I was going from Jimi Hendrix, you know, like say Voodoo Child or like Purple Haze or something like that, which I liked, but it wasn't like genuine. I was trying to think about what would other people like in the classroom rather
sure,
than what was good for me. And I said, "Fuck it, man! I'm gonna play a reggae song and let's see what these guys say." Right. So, but it was a challenge for me to do this thing, and yeah, I mean, you know, I did that, and you know, it turned out okay. But that's kind of where my mindset is most of the time. It's like
mm,
you know, balancing on that line of like, are people going to judge me for listening to the type of stuff I listen to? Or so,
yeah,
man, it was a good experience for me, man. And
yeah,
like I said, it was like the beginning of me stepping into just being not scared to be myself.
hmm yeah. I want to add one more thing too. Just in the bio for the project on the website, it says, you know, this is a place where you can, you know, use your voice or perhaps find it, you know. And that's what this project has been for me too, man. Just in the same realm as like, it's healed me, you know, like meeting all these guys. I wasn't a dude that, you know, I got my, you know, my best buds, you know, from home, and, you know, I got lots of guy friends, you know, but it wasn't, I was like, I always wanted to hang out with women, you know, more so. And it's really like healed that sort of kind of wound for me around dudes, like hanging out with dudes and like alpha dudes. And yeah, man, I have like, I'm going to launch the 50th guy on the project next week. And I got 50 dudes. I'm telling you right now, I could call any single one of those guys, any one of them, and have a conversation or, you know, ask for support. Yeah.
100%. And a
So
few of them
it's
we know.
amazing. What's that,
Yeah.
bro?
A few of them we know.
Yeah. Well, actually, the 50th one is a guy that's comes from you. Yeah.
Oh, really? Eh?
Yeah.
Okay.
Ish.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Ish.
Ish is coming up.
Yeah. Oh
Yeah.
man, that's so good. Yeah,
Yeah.
he man, this is so freaking cool. He I forgot about that. Like Ish sent me one of the pictures that you sent them a couple
Yeah.
weeks ago, I guess, like as one of the test runs. And he didn't say anything. He just sent it to me. And you know, maybe I can't remember. Maybe he put one word or something like that. And I was like, man, that's so freaking awesome, man. I'm glad you did that.
Yeah.
And it was cool to see him send that. But I mean, yeah, Ish, Seb.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Sab. Oh, yeah. I mean,
yeah,
totally. So many
Keith.
guys. Yeah. Yeah. Keith. Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm going to try to get Sean at some point. We've
yeah.
had a
Well, you know,
conversation at some point.
yeah, for sure. And you're doing good shit, man. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I mean. Like, just to say, like, dude, if man, 5-6 years ago, if you had told me that I would be actually sitting on this podcast right now, I would have said you're totally crazy.
Yeah.
Let alone the fact that it's like, yeah, I could reach out to such anytime I want. Like it's not like, and I wouldn't be, you know, shy about it.
Yeah, as you shouldn't.
Now, Jason, touching base on everything that you've said here, obviously you've heard the powerful story that Such has about having that experience. But for those coming to your website or those that are going to be or have been subjects of yours, what do you want people to get out of it? Like those doing it and those viewing it. Is there a difference, obviously? And if there is, what is it?
Yeah. I think it's not really much of a difference. Like I say, it's a place where you can come. It's cathartic just to write in general. To be honest, as a photographer, I'm an average photographer, truthfully, technically. It's the stories, right? So yeah, it's a place where you can come. What I wanted to do, what I've found is that people will write to me and say, man, I read that last story and it resonated so hard with me, or people will comment on certain people's stories. And I appreciate every single guy that comes through this door. But, of course, even for me, some of them really hit hard, right? Because we have similar lived experiences, right? And so sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, that one didn't quite, really hit for not hit for me, but it didn't touch me as much as maybe another one does. So what I want for people to do is to think of this as a place. It's almost like I came up with a word the other day, a vulnerable library. So it's a vulnerable library is what I want to create, where you can come and read a story, and you might be going through something, and another guy may have lived that, and you can feel less alone. So ultimately, I want people to be able to come to the site and read a story and feel like they're not alone. Because I think for myself, that was a big part of my life. I felt really alone. Like I really felt like my problems were extremely unique and that I was the only one suffering from them. And it's just what I've learned from doing this is that no, man, we all suffer from, the same emotions, right? So how that shows up, is different for everybody, but, or the reasons why they come up is different for everybody, but we all have them, and it's okay to talk about them. It's okay to express them. And, I am going to, we talked about cursing. I've said this, other times too, but I really like this one. And I heard it when I was really deep in it. I was listening to a podcast during the pandemic, all on, very alone, feeling very alone. And I don't know so I can't give credit to whoever it was, but a guy said on a podcast I was listening to, he said, "Fuck tough, be human." And that stuck with me, and it's like, that's what this is. It's like, yeah, man, you can be any guy, you could be any, you could be a super tough guy, or you can be a super compassionate person. Just be human.
Yeah.
Yeah, and your project definitely illustrates that, man, because the types of people, the ranges of men, the types of careers, personalities, it's so diverse in the type of people that you have that it's everyone. It's everybody.
Yeah.
There's no difference. Like we're all human, and we are experiencing being human.
Yeah.
And you're capturing that, and it's pretty freaking legit, man.
Yeah. Thanks, buddy.
And Jason, question for you. Now, I know you've said you've reached out to subjects and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
What is the criteria that you look for when you're reaching out for a subject? Is it a feel? Is it a vibe? Is it something that's going on? And I guess the second part to that question is, does it have to be something that you sense in them that you think they would benefit from the project? Or are you looking to have them be the message that helps other people out and perhaps helps them along that way?
Mm-hmm. Anybody is welcome to do this project. Any man is welcome to do this project. So it's actually, if you go to the website, anybody can submit a story. And unless it's, it also says in there, unless if you're preaching or selling anything, I'm not interested. Right. But if it's about you, you're welcome to share. Can you just repeat actually what your question was? Sorry about that.
Well, I was wondering specifically, it was kind of a 2 or 3 part question here, but
Yeah. Give me one at a time here.
sure.
Yeah.
What is the criteria? So I think you've answered that. The idea is, I
Right.
know you seek certain people out, but is there something that you get from them? Is there a vibe? Is there
Sure.
a
Yeah.
feeling that you get from them?
Yeah. So I do seek out the odd person. In the case of such, I've been following his Instagram for a while. He's an inspiring guy. So yeah, I took the risk. I mean, I really was like, I was super nervous to do that. But there's not, it wasn't a specific message that I knew such had, but I just liked. He just seemed like a solid guy that was out there, stepping into the arena and doing it, living, and also like sharing his voice, bravely sharing his voice. And so I was attracted to that. And I thought, yeah, he's the kind of guy I'm going to reach out to. Yeah.
Yeah. In your experience, while you're doing this, after you've selected the person, you've talked to them, or somebody submitted a story to you, do you find that the subject themselves is more the vessel for helping people, or do you find that it helps them even more than the other people that they might come in contact with?
Yeah, I really think it's 50-50. What I hear back all the time from guys, and I think Such touched on that, is like the actual writing part is super cathartic for people, right? If you never journaled before, which a lot of guys, haven't, it's amazing. Like I would highly recommend, like, get out there and get yourself a notepad and just write down your feelings for 1 month, it'll change your life. Like it's quite amazing. So I think the actual process of writing things down frees, those shadows. It frees parts of guys that they didn't know that they could do it that way. It's like, oh, I said it out loud. Oh, I feel a bit different, And then equally, I think the people reading it have this. It has the same effect, They feel less alone. They can relate and feel like there's hope.
And I think that brings me to sort of my point for the podcast that I'd love us to touch base on here for the time that we have. It's vulnerability and something that a phrase that I saw on your website, invisible backpacks.
Yeah.
So I'd love to talk about that a little bit. What does that mean to you? What are those two sort of words or 3 words mean to you, Jason?
It's weight, it's an invisible weight. That's what it means to me. And I was carrying around a lot of weight, like really until I was 45 years old. And I didn't know how to express it. I didn't know who to talk to about it. And so, I used the metaphor of a backpack that I was carrying, and it had all of these different behaviors that, I had taken on over the years, and there's a lot of them, and it became too much. It became too much to carry around. And it did, it burst open. And that's, essentially I said, I was stuck in this apartment here for 4 months straight, and it had to be opened up and it had to be honestly inspected. I needed to put my flashlight in there and go like, okay, what is this? Why is it here? Why do I carry it? And by, doing that, I was really able to lighten that load. And I think a lot of guys out there are carrying invisible backpacks, because on the outwardly, they look like everything's fine. And the truth is they're packing around a lot of pain. So,
Such, what are your thoughts on vulnerability and invisible backpacks?
I like that, man. It's interesting, the invisible backpacks. The first thing that came into my mind was a ruck, and people rucksack. You got an 80-pound rucksack on, and you're trying to march or walk or run or whatever you're doing. And you're right. Metaphorically, you're carrying a lot of weight. And when you start processing or at least understanding what that weight is and removing some of that weight, then you can move a lot faster and more nimble and quicker. And I think that's a very powerful image. And I think when people understand that, they can start looking at some of that weight and maybe being a bit more vulnerable to talk about it, and then maybe have better opportunities to process it. You can start taking that weight off and you can move a lot freer. and stepping into who you are authentically. Like we keep saying it, right?
For sure.
But I mean, it's true, man. Like I mean, I'm 46, and I don't think I've felt this light ever. And I'm not fully perfect, but I got still work to do. But in the span of a couple 3 years, you can really process those things and put some um, take some of that weight off and move forward in a faster pace.
Yeah.
I know when I was reading some of the stories that were in there and I saw the invisible backpack metaphor, the biggest thing that stuck in my head, and I was similar to such, whereas I thought of a ruck. I know you described your invisible backpack very much like that.
Yeah.
And I thought most of my professional career, at the very least, I prided myself, and I've talked about this before, on my ability to endure. And we're very good, especially as men. And I'm just going to talk about men because that's all that I am. But we're very good at putting the weight, putting the load in. We will take the load, we'll put it in. We almost won't even think about it.
Sure.
And sometimes it's small amounts, small amounts, small amounts. Sometimes it's big amounts. What we're horrible at is putting it down or believing that we should put it down. I know for me in my struggles that the load that I carried it for so long, I almost felt it was my burden to bear. Like I somehow deserved to carry that weight, and it wasn't okay to put it down.
Yeah. Right. It's your
And
duty. Yeah.
it's my duty. I'd love to get your thoughts on that, Jason.
Yeah. I feel similarly. I think what comes to mind for me is there's a saying, literally my story is about having a bad back my whole life. So since I can remember, since I was a little kid, literally maybe even younger than 13, I've had a bad back on a weekly basis. And it's where I literally carry my pain. I've never needed to actually get back surgery, so I'm sitting here, I can go lift things, but as on a daily basis, I have had pain in my back, but it's, different varying levels of it, like soreness to really, problematic, like life's miserable, and yeah, there's a saying, the issues are in your tissues. And it's like you carry that. People carry like you got a bad knee or you got a whatever. As crazy as it sounds, it's like, yeah, no, that's probably possibly where you're carrying, that weight. Yeah, that pain.
What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, when you were talking about that, that's what I was thinking about. I was thinking about, sometimes, at least for me, I could speak to that maybe. You kind of pride yourself on how much weight you can carry, right? Oh, I'll take this load. Don't worry, I got you. I'll take care of that, right? And you can keep moving forward and forward. And I think, there we can't take all the load. You can't take everything. You can't be. I mean, I thought I could, most of my life, and there does come a time where that weight becomes too much. Everyone has that tipping point. I believe everyone does, and I think it's probably better to understand that earlier so that you can manage that rucksack throughout your life rather than keep putting the weight in year after year after year after year until you're about 50 and you've got like 1,000 pounds in that rucksack. You can have that bag. You can take people's loads, but then you can offload it sometimes, right? And how do you offload it? Well, it's men's groups having conversations, going seeing a doctor, psychologist, whatever the thing is. But offloading that weight from time to time so that you can keep taking load. Because we don't want to be that guy who's not taking load for people. We want to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But how do we do it in a way that's helpful to ourselves and to everyone else? Because if we're taking everyone's load and we're not offloading it from time to time, we're not helping nobody at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So I think it's yeah. No, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, if you don't at some point look at your load, it will, the universe, whatever you believe in, is going to give you like that sort of, you got to sit down here for a little bit now. You're going to have a forced crisis. That's what happens. You carry it for too long and you keep just trying to push through. Yeah. Sooner or later, you're going to have a crisis in your life. and you're
Yeah.
going to be forced. You're going to be forced to put it down.
And I'd love to touch base on that. So, the big thing that always sticks in my head when you guys are talking about that is we're designed to take these loads and we want to take these heavy loads for people. The problem is that we never offload them, like I was saying. So, somebody says, "Hey, I'm going through a lot," and you say, "I got you." And you carry this load and you walk it for a long distance. And then you forget that you're supposed to offload that. You're
Right.
supposed to put that down. You're either supposed to give that back or walk it for somebody to the point where they are going to get rid of it and you're allowed to dump that. But we don't. We keep walking with it. So we always have our capacity loaded all the time. And what people don't understand is they're being proud about the ability to endure and carry this load. But what they don't know is they're not able to take on anything else because they're
Right.
at capacity. So they're being no benefit to everybody else, even though they are carrying this massive load.
Right. Yeah.
And it's just something, and I know, and talking with Jason, when you were saying how your body will give you a pause, this is one of the main reasons why I've done this. And I know I've talked about it before. I literally had something rupture inside of me and try to
Yeah.
kill me
Right.
because I kept everything inside.
Right.
I didn't realize that. I was like, I'm fine. I'm fine. I'm fine. I've got pain. I'm fine. I'm sick. I'm fine. And then was stubborn enough to not go to the hospital for 5 days, got a little bit of medicine, left, came back 3 days later, and they're like, yeah, you're dying.
Wow. Wow.
And I thought I needed to endure that
Yeah.
because
It's
that's the
yeah.
load. That's the load I had to carry.
Sure. Well, that strikes something up for me too. Is those loads become, they become disease, right? Like literally disease. And this is my belief that you leave it and you continue because there's people out there that can handle a lot of load, man, and they'll go they'll go into their 60s and 70s with that load. A lot of our fathers, are carrying those loads because they didn't. This wasn't a thing. Sitting with three guys having a conversation like this was not a thing. And, you see it all the time. You see disease, in our families. And I believe that a lot of that has to do with and not just for men, but women too, has a lot to do with carrying a lot of load or carrying a lot of trauma or, a shame or whatever, insert whatever you want, needing to be a perfectionist, whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I know, and it's interesting that you say the trauma side of things because one of my questions was, who decides what goes in the invisible backpack and why? And I think that we take things on voluntarily, but when it comes to things like trauma in our lives, I don't think it's up to us what gets put in there. I think we're walking along and all of a sudden, hey, guess what? Here's 50% extra load on you that you weren't expecting, nor did you want, but you
Right.
feel that it's your responsibility to carry it, or you don't know how to put it down.
Right. Yeah, I think they become behaviors that are they're essentially coping behaviors, I think, and I think we look at them as bad behaviors, but actually they're actually trying to help you. All of the parts of you, whatever they are. Let's specifically speak to the bad ones, are actually trying to help you. They're not trying to, kibosh your life. They're actually there to try to keep you safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Jason did mention as well that we put habits in there as well. Is that something that resonates with you?
Yeah, I think like when he was talking about disease, right? Disease doesn't have to just be like the sickness of cancer or something like that.
Right.
It can be the disease of addiction too. And
Totally.
a lot of our elder, people like our fathers or whoever that are maybe a generation above us, they had a lot of that alcohol and coping with things through that kind of way instead of having conversations like we're doing right now. Maybe that was how they handled things. And it does resonate with me because I had a lot of bad habits to manage a lot of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I was carrying a lot of weight and I had a lot of bad habits that were diseases that were affecting me until I offloaded some things. And then, you could start healing to a certain degree, and then you can start functioning like a normal person. I remember like yeah, I mean, I remember when I was going through my divorce. This is like going back 4 or 5 years ago, whatever it was, and there was a time where I was like, I'm fully resigned to having a crap life now.
Hmm.
Like I just thought in my head, I'm cool with just being alone for the rest of my life, living in a basement suite, and all I would be is a service to my daughter, and that's it. I'll live a shit life. Like I'll endure it. I'll endure my life, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I thought I almost had a level of pride to that. I was like, you know what? I can handle this. I'll endure the rest of my life like crap.
Hmm.
And then it came to a point where I was like, man, I don't want to endure life. I want to experience it. I want to enjoy the parts of life that I want to enjoy life and all the things that it offers. And I didn't really understand what that meant. I never did until
Yeah.
now. And until now, I understand what experiencing life means. And I think you can only get to that place when you're actually able to be in the moment and understand and have gratitude to the things that you're actually experiencing, good or bad, right? And
Yeah.
that requires a shift in how you think. That requires a shift in how you process things. That has this, a whole bunch of things. So, yeah, that's the first thing that came to my mind, man. When we were all talking about disease, I was thinking back about the divorce and how I actually, like, man, it's so weird. I was like, yeah, I'm cool. Rest of my life, 30, 40 years, I'll just live right here and just live a crap life and just keep moving forward. It's crazy.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. And speaking sort of like with your divorce and stuff like that, I'm thinking about the weights that we put in there, or the loads that I put into my invisible backpack. I'll tell you right now, I probably take on loads that I don't need to. As in, like I'm going to carry that weight for you. Well, like with my wife, if she's going through something difficult, she doesn't want me to take the load. She wants me to be there and help her take that load. But I just, for whatever reason, will grab a hold of that and shove it in my backpack and think that I need to carry that for her. Meanwhile, she's still carrying that load. We basically doubled the load for
Hmm.
no good
Yeah.
reason, no
Right.
benefit.
Wow. Yeah. It's
And
interesting.
now, because we've doubled it, she goes off, she carries her load, she drops it. But I never do because I never had a place to drop it. So I continue to carry it,
Hmm.
at least in my mind. Anyway, something that I was thinking about when you were saying that. Thoughts,
Yeah.
Jason?
Well, I had a thought that we do this thing where we might be people pleaser kind of people, or we might not have good boundaries in general in life, and it's like we really need to learn that you can love somebody and it's still not your responsibility to carry that person's weight, right? And I think I am that kind of person that would take on the weight of other people, and like emotionally. And I've had to learn to say like that's not mine. I'm here to support you, but I can't take that on. Yeah, yeah. Just to say
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. For those of our listeners that are sort of nodding along here, how do we recognize? Because obviously, as you said, it's an invisible backpack. How do we acknowledge that we're even carrying it, let alone what the load is? How do we acknowledge that? How do we deal with that? And then how do we move on from, okay, I have this backpack now. I didn't think I did, but I do. How do we move on?
I think what comes to mind for me is just to put a pen to paper. I think that's part of the process is to first identify what that is for you, um, and just be brutally honest about where you're at. Journal, write some stuff down. Like, how do I feel today? Okay, I feel angry. Why do you feel angry? Right, just write whatever words come to mind. And just sort of keep digging down. You want to keep digging down at what's in there. What is it that you're harboring in this pack? And I think that's the start of it. And I think if you continue that process, like sooner or later, you will be like taking things out and, lightening that load and therefore moving forward. Right?
Such thoughts?
Yeah, it's a process, man. It's not.
Yeah.
I think people. Mm, I think people should understand if it's a process and it takes time. It takes it could take lots of time. It could take the rest of your life.
It takes a long time. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's super important to recognize that, and you got to start the process as soon as you can. So I think writing things down is great. You're feeling something, write it down and kind of analyze it and dive deep on it. Why do you feel that way? What's going on there? And if you keep gearing down and driving in, you'll figure it out.
Hmm.
And it takes time. And then you can start seeing what's causing these emotions, what's causing these reactions or behaviors, and then you could start offloading things. And when we say offloading things, boundaries. Okay, these people are not in my life anymore, or these are the types of things I shouldn't be doing anymore, or these are that's how you start offloading things. And when you offload, like in my case, I offloaded everything. I have offloaded all the people that I kind of hung out with before, the type of work I was doing, like all the things that were really, I feel, holding me down. And and then once you kind of get to that place, then you can kind of start figuring out, okay, what am I? Who am I? How do I do things? How do I move forward? Because it's
Right.
such a introspective, reflective journey. Reflective, is that the right word? I don't know. Anyways, you get what I'm saying.
Hmm.
It's such
Hmm.
a journey it's such an individual journey. It's so individual to the person. And I think you got to really dive deep and understand it takes time. And I wanted to jump back to what you were saying about the your wife, and you're helping her with her loader, and you're carrying it as well. Man, I get that. I mean, and I think most men probably understand that, right? Like most men, hey, let me do it. I'll take care of it. Want to fix the thing. And I'm just now kind of understanding that's their problem. They got to figure it out because that'll make them better.
That's right.
So we're there to guide and support them through that endeavor, but not taking their load. So we're their sounding board, we're their counselor, we're their friend, but we're not taking anyone's load. And I used to think, man, why isn't anyone taking my load? I help so many people, no one helping me, and that automatically put me into a victim mindset. And I think for me, I try to remember when I start feeling that way, I don't want to be a victim mindset. I got to think growth, growth, growth. And then that pushes me into the place where I got to chase adversity
Mm.
and be on that path.
Mm. Yeah, love it.
Oh,
Love it.
I had a thought too about the journey and, like, how do we move forward? Just to go back for a second. There's a saying, the longest journey you'll ever take is from your head to your heart.
Mm.
And I think, you know, you can't, I had a therapist when I first tried to sort of go get some help for myself. I had a therapist that said to me, you're gonna have to do this alone, and you're gonna have to feel it. You're not gonna be able to think your way through this thing. And I think there's so many of us out there who really don't know. Like it took me a really long time to sort of understand what that meant. Strangely, um, you're gonna have to feel it. You can't think things away. You can't think your pain away. You can't change your pain by thinking. You can think all you want, man. Think as much as you like, but
You
it's
know
not.
what, man? That's such a good and a really good point, because we're all dudes, right? And we
Yeah,
don't feel shit.
yeah,
You
yeah,
know what I mean? And what my psychologist said that to me too. She's like, you got to feel it. I go, what do you mean?
yeah.
Like
What does that mean?
I'm feeling things. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah,
And only now, like, you're right. It takes time to figure out, oh, I got to feel this feeling. And,
yeah,
I think when we don't understand that, we allow that feeling to last way longer than it really
right.
needs to. The
Totally.
reality, these feelings last about 30 seconds to a minute,
Yeah,
but because we're not feeling them, we're just holding them in, and they're just kind of bouncing around within us. And
it's so true.
it slows us down.
Yeah,
But you can just think, okay, let me feel this pain, let me feel this sorrow, let me feel this sadness.
yeah,
If it takes a day, cool. And if it takes a week, cool. But you got to feel it,
yeah.
and
Hmm.
allow to feel it, and then you can actually move on, and you can actually move forward with positive sort of momentum.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think.
you can literally feel it dissipate. If you can literally feel where it is in your body and focus on that thing. It's like this feeling. Okay, I'm angry. Like, where is it in you? Is it in your
Mm.
chest? Take a minute, focus on that, and like kind of connect with it and breathe into it, and you'll be like, oh, okay. I gave acknowledgement to this part that's yelling out at me, like, hey, like, you're not listening to me. It's like, okay, I'll go in there and listen to you. And it's like, okay, thank you. Okay,
Mhm.
let's go, move forward.
Yeah. And I to tie it back to sort of a bit with my life here that I'm really identifying with is when my daughters, my young daughters, are having problems and they're authentically expressing themselves by crying, by doing whatever. My first response is stop crying. And why am I saying that? Because it's better for them or because I don't want to deal with that emotion? Because they will deal with that emotion and then they will move on. They won't hold on to it. They were upset. We talked about it. They had time to feel that emotion and then it served its purpose and they moved on. Whereas if I say immediately, like I do to myself, stop crying, I'm not doing that for them. And I never feel that emotion. So where does it go? It stays in here.
Mm-hmm.
It never goes anywhere. It never gets processed. It never moves on. It never evolves and dissipates. And then that's where we end up carrying this load.
Right. Yeah,
It's all of us putting it in there.
for
And
sure.
and I wanted to say too, because Such was I think Such and Jason, you a little bit as well, were saying that these loads that we're putting in there sometimes take a lifetime to load up. So when you are in that process of starting to give yourself permission to lessen the load and to offload those and to feel that feeling, feel that emotion, as you're taking them out, they're going to be really powerful. But keep in mind, some of those things that first went into that bag might not have happened when you were an adult. They might have
Oh, for
happened
sure.
earlier on in your life.
Yeah.
You have to reach way, way down, and
Yeah.
they're super compacted in the bottom of that bag, and they are hard to get out.
They're literally in many cases in a locked, iron gate or iron block, and it takes a long time sometimes to get, to crack that block and a little bit of light in there, but it's possible. And yeah, it does require a lot of deep, digging and work. But when you feel it, it's pretty monumental. It's mind blowing actually. Yeah, it's hard work.
All right, we're getting close to the end of the hour here. Such, I'd love to know any final thoughts you have here.
No, I just want to say this was an awesome conversation, and I really appreciate you, Jason, for coming on and taking the time out of the day to, share the conversation, enjoy it with each other, and maybe one or two people who are listening to this might take something away with it, and maybe they're gonna hit you up to be on the Shadow and Light project. Who knows?
That'd be great. Yeah, that'd
Yeah.
be great.
Jason, final thoughts for our conversation.
Yeah, just thanks so much for having me on. This for you guys, like, just to let you guys know too. This is huge for me. This project came around because I was afraid to share my voice, essentially as a young guy, and not even a young guy, even as an adult, right? And this, like I said, if you had told me that I'd be doing this at some point in my life, I would have said you're crazy. So this is part of my growth, and it really is confronting for me, and it scares the shit out of me. And I just really appreciate that you guys, held the space for me and held my hand through this. So thanks so much.
No, we appreciate it. And as always, I mean, this podcast was created as a way to give back to the universe, as it were, and not just take. So we're glad that somebody out there gets something from it, if not just me and Such.
Sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's been awesome for me.
Yeah. Pay the bills a little bit. I always got to remind people, remember to like, subscribe, and comment to help us out on this. Such, what do you got going on? What's happening?
March 30th, A Night to Inspire, man. We got the tickets still available, so please DM me and hit me up if you want to go. We have nine amazing speakers speaking on their perspectives on mental health and providing some tangible tools for those that are going to be in attendance that they can leave and utilize in their lives. And it'll be also an opportunity for people who are interested in this type of stuff to connect and be in an environment together to just have conversation. And looking forward to seeing people there. So if anyone wants a ticket, please do hit me up and I'll point you in the right direction for those tickets.
Awesome. And Jason, how do people get in contact with you? What do you got coming up here? Any upcoming projects?
Sure. Yeah. Well, the Shadows and Light Project, you can find at shadowsandlightproject.com. The Instagram handle is Shadows and Light Project. Sorry. And I'd love it if you just popped on there and had a look. And if you're interested in sharing a story of your own, please reach out to me through any of those channels. Yeah, like I say, Ish, our buddy Ish, is going to be the 50th guy on the project that's coming up next week. And yeah, just look out for in the future. I want to make a book or multiple volumes of books as we go. And maybe one day you'll see me standing on a stage telling my story. So.
Oh, well, you know what then? Hey, whoa. Be careful what you wish for, bro.
Yeah. Force multiplier. Yeah, here we go.
Be careful, because I might make that happen for you.
Yeah. Well, I'm not there yet, but I would just say to you, in this public forum that yes, man, that's what I want to do.
Awesome.
That's
Done.
the point.
Okay.
So,
You hit me up when you're ready.
Yeah. Cool.
Awesome. And obviously from all of us to our listeners, thanks again for coming on the journey. I'd love to know what you're carrying in your individual invisible backpack, and let us know, and we'll let Jason know. From all of us, thanks again for coming on our journey again this week. We'd love to see you next week. Later, guys.
See you guys later.
See you.